your automation systems. My name is Monica Vlas. I'm part of the U.S. Service Marketing team. I'll be your moderator today. Before we get to our main presentation, I'd like to introduce our ABB Automation Empower World event. This is the premier event for engineers and business leaders to provide experience and learning about the latest in automation and power technology and how it can benefit your business. This year's event will be held at the Orange County Convention Center in Orlando, Florida, March 25th through the 28th. The event will include over 400 educational workshops on topics vital to the success of your business. You can earn PDH and CEU credits and spend valuable networking time with your peers. The event features a technology and solution center with over 150,000 square feet of exhibits and tons of electrical and automation equipment, and hundreds of experts ready to answer your questions and share the future of automation and power solutions. We are expecting over 4,000 attendees at this event, making it an excellent opportunity for face-to-face sharing of your ideas and a chance to get reacquainted with old friends and colleagues. This slide shows some examples of the educational workshops developed for all audiences, roles, industries, and experience levels. Be sure to bring your questions to be answered by our expert panel of presenters. Here are some comments from past attendees. I'll be back at the end of today's presentation with more information about the ABB Automation Empower World Conference. Our speaker today is Jennifer Love, a U.S. Service Business Development Manager responsible for promoting our portfolio of advanced service offerings and tools. She has over 15 years of industry experience in project, program, and operations management, as well as application engineering and sales consulting. Jennifer, that's an impressive resume. We're glad to have you with us today. Are you ready to get started?
I am. Thanks, Monica. Well, hello everyone, and welcome to today's webinar, Using Advanced Services to Optimize Automation Systems. What we'll be covering today are service options you should be considering. Additionally, each one of these that I'm going to be talking about today will be on display at this year's Automation Empower World, so we hope to see you. We're also going to be looking at how to evaluate the effectiveness of your service provider. In other words, what things are out there that they should be offering to you. And then lastly, how to get the most benefit out of that relationship. What are the things that you can be doing to improve that as well? So before we even jump in and get started on what any of those services are, let's kind of take a step back and let's look at some of the issues that we're seeing today in our world. First, we're seeing, we're all maintaining very complex systems, and it is challenging. The major reason for a lot of the challenges that I'm seeing anyway is a lack of resources. In other words, there just aren't enough people to help, or people with the right kinds of skills to help. And when they do exist, they're not necessarily located anywhere close. So it's very difficult to get people to come help and to resolve some of these issues in a timely manner. And overall, there's a huge knowledge gap. Maybe you can find one resource to come in and help, but maybe they know the system 5 years earlier. There's a number of reasons for the knowledge gap. And overall, what we're seeing is the things that nobody likes in this industry, which is the system performance is decreasing, or people are showing us how they're losing profits. It's very frustrating, and then you're seeing an overall increase of downtime. And none of these things, as you all know, are good things. They cause all of this headaches. These are the things that every day we walk in and our challenges to overcome these. And your automation providers do have things today to help you with these challenges. Let's jump in and see what some of those look like. So let's look at how your provider can help you. They should be providing you with tools and services that can help you manage multiple functional areas. And what I mean by that is that there are just so many things going on in the automation plant, whether it's just looking at the system performance or the machine staying online, or is the data that's actually being recorded, is it being done correctly, or is it even being displayed in ways that are necessary for your operation. Tools are using a systematic approach, and what I mean by that is instead of the tools just coming and giving you data, which is great. It's also applying some technology and some science behind it to be able to show you just where the problems are occurring, instead of giving you a whole bunch of data that then you have to take and actually find that root cause analysis. Now the tools are hopefully doing that for you. Improving implementation schedule, in other words, getting smarter about how to arrange maintenance tasks. What are the most important? What are the things that get the most financial benefit? You know, whatever your needs are, putting it into order. The access to the raw data. You know, I get lots of opportunities to go talk to customers, and I talk about all these great tools and all these ways we manipulate data now, and I keep getting asked, okay, can I just still see the raw data? You know, being able to really see your raw data helps with very, very advanced troubleshooting. Benchmarking and KPIs, this is still a very important thing. If, you know, whenever you sit there and you've got your running system, maybe it's been online for 2 years, it's great to know, how do you rate? I get that question a lot. Usually it's, you know, after the meeting's over with and we're packing up and customers come to me and say, you know, you've seen a lot of customers in implementation of these systems. How do we rate, you know? That's an important thing in our industry now. And then being able to address those benchmarks with KPIs. In other words, being able to watch over time. Am I within the bounds of where I should be? And then being able to report that information to others and, you know, have something to be proud of. Hey, we hit all of our KPIs this month. Being able to identify at-risk access. And this is becoming something in our industry that is very important. Different regulations out there. Our buddies in the power industry definitely know what I mean by at-risk assets. It's assets that any of these regulations have targeted and said these particular either pieces of hardware or maybe even the software within the system has to be configured and has to be done in such a way that matches those compliances. Continuous improvement cycle, so this we'll get into in a little bit. It's really taking, I think, the running machine to the next level. In other words, instead of just worrying about, okay, the vendor has released new functionality, there's a new service pack, okay, let's make sure whatever's in there addresses our concerns, but we want to see us start to look at that and say, oh wow, we can improve now. We're actually running great. We've been running fine. We haven't seen any, the system hasn't deteriorated, so we're looking at improvement. Also, some of the advanced the service delivery options out there can help you. This is where we get into things like being able to go and process and look at how your loops are performing. Have they been looked at in the last 6 months? Being able to give you benchmarks there too. And how to get the most out of your benefit out of your provider. This is an interesting one, and we'll talk about this later in the presentation. It's what are the things that are available maybe you didn't already know or haven't been taking advantage of that you can be doing even today. So let's jump in. So what are the things that they should be? How does this look like? What does this look like? What does this correlate to in the actual offering? Well, today, right off the bat, they should be providing you with diagnostic and corrective services. And what I mean by that is tools, people, those types of things. And they should also be giving you something or providing you with some methodologies that help you with identifying issues before they even come into effect. In other words, being able to come in during maintenance schedules and do 8 different things, perhaps, that will prevent any kind of big problem coming in available. And what's available to do all those things, you might be asking? Tools, like I said, being able to go quickly and jump down and see that critical information. You know, they are the OEM in most cases. They know their system's the best. A lot of data does get captured in the process control environment, but it's very important whenever you're having a problem to get down at the really low levels, and they should be providing you with those things. And they should be pinpointing those needs of attention. I can't stress enough. You know, giving somebody a bunch of data whenever they're having a problem is like sticking your finger in a wound. It doesn't help. But being able to actually pinpoint where that problem is. And then obviously optimization service that really focus on your reliability, safety, and performance. And what I mean by that is those are where you get into more advanced services that are tailored to whatever your process is doing. The first 2 are more generic in nature, but that last one is really where you get the bang for your buck. And that's where you go from that ROI of maybe 10% to 1,000%. The payback on these services is enormous if they're applied correctly. This is one of my absolute favorite slides when it comes to talking about a systematic approach for troubleshooting faster. if you take a look at the left-hand side where it says Q units, and you have 4 boxes and one is red, this kind of represents where we used to be in our world. When a service call was made, or even if your resources in your plants were dispatched in to help solve an issue, you could almost spend the entire day looking at every aspect of the system to try to find out where the problem is, because there were so many there were few moving parts. It was very easy to identify issues. Usually it was the modules showing an orange, it should be showing a green, things like that. Very simple things, maybe 2, 3, 4 steps that would solve that. Boy, we miss those days. Well, over on the right-hand side is where we are today. We have a lot of moving parts, and sometimes getting down to that middle section where the problem lies is very difficult and very challenging. Here's a great example of something I experienced recently. We had a customer call in, and they were having a problem, and they had many, many different ways the problem was manifesting. They'd been working on it for at least a few days. And the first question that got asked was some firmware updated in one of your modules? We had released some firmware updates. And somebody on the phone at the site said, absolutely yes, we did that 4 days ago. And we said, okay. Well, what we had available to us were some tools that could go and do a scan of the system and pull all the information, how it was configured, how different parts of the system were performing, so on and so forth. And so we said, okay, what we're going to do, we're going to take a couple hours, and we're going to go run our tools, and we'll call you back, and we'll review what we find. Maybe we'll find nothing, but maybe we'll find something to help you. So we did that, and come to find out, a lot of this firmware update had been applied, but one module it had missed. It didn't take for some reason. And that ended up being the problem. So the firmware was updated, and lo and behold, the problem didn't exist anymore. And so a problem that they went around and around, thought they had applied it properly, turned out it hadn't for whatever the reason. Those things do happen sometimes. And what took them a few days took us just a couple hours to help them with. So being able to have that systematic approach, or being able to focus in on the areas that are problematic instead of just trying to go each individual little square box, is a huge savings and a huge sanity saver, I'd say. And here's an example of what I see when I go to different customer sites. One of the questions I like to ask is just, how's the system running? How do you feel you've performed over the last 6 months, maybe from the last time I saw them? And I get various things. Sometimes I get, just somebody will have a bucket of spreadsheets. In other words, I've got 6 or 7 of them that they're looking at, and they're very, very complicated, and I can't even imagine what it must be like to maintain all those macros. And then sometimes I see it up on a whiteboard, and the do not erase is all over it. Nobody dare touch it, because it's what they're using to report and to discuss the different areas of the control system. There's got to be a better way to do that. I mean, I know that I've gone in there and looked at that and said, geez, there's got to be something that we as an automation provider can help you with this. Well, there are a lot of things. And what we're finding is by providing tools with the ability to report, you can look at multiple different areas. And this really helps you with some of that knowledge gap, because there are some things that you don't necessarily need to have on site, or to have that expert on site with. You could, if you're reporting on it, because it doesn't typically change much, but when it does, boy, it could be a problem. But being able to monitor certain parameters so that you can see it before it actually happens. In other words, if it's still in the warning phase, you can make the call and schedule the work out 2 weeks in advance. It's not a problem. Whereas if you're in the red zone, and that's the first time you've seen it because of how it's manifested, it causes for a whole other chain of command, other things you have to do. Additionally, new things are coming out like cybersecurity. Everybody's got those concerns, but we don't necessarily have experts online. Maybe you're doing fine with that. One of how cybersecurity is coming out as an example is a lot of times I hear from customers that they've got IT personnel within their organization, and their site, for whatever the reason, is going to be audited. They want to know, okay, what is this audit going to look like? like for me? Are they going to come in and have a list of 27 things, or Only 2. Well, because we, as the provider, have to keep up with that as well, we can tell you that kind of stuff so that maybe you'll have a little bit of warning beforehand. And then after the audit's done, how do you deviate if you do? And the list keeps going. I mean, there are so many things in our world today that we have to be concerned with. And, automation vendors know that. And if you have their services and you have their tools, you're seeing a financial gain because maybe you don't have to worry about certain kinds of resources anymore. But you're also just having the knowing that my tools are going to continue to be updated as these new things come out, as these new awarenesses become prevalent in your industry. This is also a fun slide as well. This one is about implementation schedules. If you look on the left-hand side, in addition to the whiteboards or the spreadsheets that I see, customers are always showing and sharing with me their overall diagram of their system. And I remember early on in my career, this used to be a whole lot less colorful. There used to be a lot less things. But today, and it continues to grow, I fear the day that we run out of colors. But if you look at this, it's a monster. But when it comes down to implementing or being able to organize it in a way, a lot of these different areas do fit into different buckets and can help with the scheduling. And where this comes into play and why this is important is because by putting these things in the right area, so if it's a tuning problem or a logic problem, a signal problem, you can create an action plan so that whenever you do schedule that resource to come on site, they know exactly where to start. It's not we don't have to spend 2 or 3 days organizing different things. If you're doing this all the time, or this becomes part of your scope or what you're doing, then this plan is always being updated. It's just a matter of the resources getting in there and executing on the work. Additionally, you could take things and organize them by whatever gets you the best financial benefit, so that whenever your boss or whoever you're having to report to comes in and says, well, why did you do the tuning first, not the logic, or vice versa, you can explain to them that, well, within our system, because of our problems today or because of where we're trying to go, it made the most financial sense to focus on these things because they give us the best return, and so on. Okay, this is the continuous improvement cycle. What we have found over time in our industry is when we look at a continuous improvement cycle, we're very good at going from, if you look on the screen, from, say, number 1, diagnose, to number 2, implement. This is where, I like to think of this as when you come off the FAT cycle or you have different issues and they've been diagnosed and implemented. When we get into that implementation phase, everybody's very happy. They feel good. All the different things that were problematic no longer are. And then immediately once that crew of people leave site or go off to the next big thing, that curve starts to go down. Well, there's got to be a better way for this. Well, what we're doing now and what automation vendors are doing is really trying to keep that line constant, where you see number 3 or even upticking to 4. Well, number 3 happens whenever you are gathering data all the time about your system and keeping those benchmarks in place, and anytime something deviates just a little bit, going ahead and focusing on that, putting resources on it, that kind of thing. Or calling the vendor saying, hey, I need some help here. And number 4 is when you get into, I like to call that the sweet spot, because 3 becomes the norm. So at any particular point in time, you're not worried about, you're not set on that curve. You're not continuing to stay at 2 and going down and just waiting on the next cycle of people coming in and reviewing your entire system and creating that laundry list and improvements. You're not in that cycle. So that whenever the vendor releases a new upgrade or makes a change or a new version comes out or a new tool comes out, you're able to take advantage of it so that you start to see the system actually sustaining itself and then even improving as well. And that's what we're trying to get. And this is where, when you talk to your automation providers, they should be able to explain to you how they achieve this with tools or working with you and how they want to help you continue to get into what I call the sweet spot, number 4 there. I know that when I've given this presentation before, usually the major question I get here is, okay, all that is really great. So you've got tools, you've got things you can help me, you've got your strategies, which are, thank goodness you guys are thinking about this stuff. That looks great, but I'm still concerned. You started the presentation off saying the thing that I know we're dealing with every day, which is a lack of resources in the industry, a huge knowledge gap. Now, how are you going to overcome that exactly? Because I know that you're not going to move 5 people down the road from my plant to come in and do all these tools and give me these reports. Well, what we've got now is we've got a traditional way of doing service, which, that's exactly what it is, where you've got people close by that can go to site and can come in and hopefully look at that vendor software solution or some of the tools that I've been talking about. But because the world is where it is today with internet technology, and that's the exciting thing is with this technology that we have at our hands today, we can provide remote access into your system to look at that solution. And also being able to provide secure remote access in the world we live in today is key too. If there is a solution on site where all the tools are in one area and it is isolated from those critical assets, then whoever's remotely coming in is only looking at the results of some of those tools. But they're not having to go down to those critical assets or go to those things that are on process. They're just simply looking at the tools and the results of those. I see all the time, and where this is very effective is being able to utilize that box and be able to show the screens of the HMIs that are problematic in the site, so the person that is remote only is seeing what's on the screen and being able to tell the person on the phone where they should click or what they should do, what parameter to update, and it becomes almost a training tool, and therefore the person at site is actually doing the work. So that if there is a change that's made or something does happen that was unexpected, there is a person at site. That's one model. An extreme model of that I've seen actually utilizing this technology, just how far we've come, is one customer that actually, instead of having people manned at each one of their locations, they've actually architected a system such that they only have one place where they're actually monitoring or controlling many sites. So there's a lot that can be done with this. I personally think we've just barely started to touch on it. But the good news is we do have the ability to do it very securely. And the good news is, too, at sites, there's these IT organizations that are also working with us to make sure that this does stay secured. And that's the beauty. Every day something new comes out, just making this even more and more fast and more secure. So we've kind of talked about tools and how we enable the resources to get to the tools and all those great things. But let's kind of jump into what this data looks like, or what are you really getting. I like this slide. Like I say, I can't tell you how many times I give these presentations and people still want to see the raw data. The raw data is very important to being able to see trends, or if you've got, say, somebody who is very advanced in terms of process engineering, being able to come on site and have one place to go to look at this raw data. Just having the data organized by machine, by site, and having a centralized place to go also cuts down on a lot of time, because they're not having to go to the individual modules or go to the individual stations and interrupting the control operator that's maybe at their workstation. They've got their one place to go, and they can go and see the latest information about that particular system. And that's really important, because every now and then we do see intermittent problems out there, and this deep analysis is what is required in order to troubleshoot those kind of issues out there. Benchmarking and KPIs. So this is still very, very important in our world today. Being able to quickly go and look and say, hey, I'm doing good today, or oh goodness, I need to focus in the process area today because I've got some things that are going, beyond the places it should be. This is important because whenever the resources do come on site, not having to spend 2 or 3 days figuring out where the problems are or what's been going on is critical to getting that person also down into that systematic approach and being able to focus right where those problems are and not having to spend a whole lot of time solving those problems. I can't say how many times whenever I've had examples where customers had something go bump in the night at 2 a.m. because it never happens at 2 p.m., always at 2 a.m. And these kind of tools were very critical in allowing the person that's logging in to know how to navigate the system, because sometimes the person that's resolving the problem at 2 a.m. maybe has never worked with your system or worked with your resources. This will save a lot of questions being asked. What versions are you running? How long has the problem been there? You know, those things that can really, really slow down that troubleshooting process. And then, of course, you know, you have raw data, and now that we've got all these really great KPIs and the ability for people to really pinpoint the areas, we want to find out how the system's doing. So being able to go in and enable automatic alarms and being able to have the system actually start to communicate and tell you where those are, you know, bumping off, where they're having problems. An example here might be if you have an engineer that works with you a lot and they're not necessarily at your site all the time. Well, you can have the system set up to email them or to page them, and then they can log in, use these tools to be able to determine, okay, that's not an issue. We can maybe push that off for a day or two, or no, that's a real big problem. We need to get somebody out there right away. Again, all these things are enabling that expert to really focus where that problem area is. In this example here, you know, you've got different things. The ones on the left, too, are the ones that are in trouble because you've already defined kind of what is healthy with that green line. I mean, this is like you can think of the last 6 months worth of issues you had. Could you have used some of these tools? I think so. I mean, just being able to know where we're out of spec is a big thing. So to start to wrap up, and everything that we've looked at so far in the presentation is some of the options you should be considering that are available to you today. Definitely subscriptions to advanced software. What I mean by that is all these tools. A lot of times they are being delivered as software services today, or services that are identifying issues before they arise. And the reason for that is because every day things change, and these different software systems or services do need to be updated. And that's why you're seeing them being offered this way, so that as the system changes or as things do come out, you're able to access them without having to worry about, okay, another place to install software, another update I've got to do. This is something the vendor is just completely taking ownership of. You definitely start to look at secured remote connectivity. I get a lot of pushback from customers saying, you know, there's no way that my IT organization is going to allow vendors to do remote connectivity. You might be surprised. A couple of years ago, maybe 3-4 years ago, I would totally agree with you. But I think today with the technology and the know-how, vendors can work with your IT departments to make sure that we do provide a secured solution that we're both comfortable with and continue to work together with. Advanced on-site optimization service, you know, services that really do look and see, have my loops been looked at in the last 6 months that are, you know, this is where that big return comes in, because if we can help you identify where loops are outside their ranges and help you figure out, okay, how do we tune this one, that's where you see a lot of return on how services from vendors can really, really help you. And then proactive control system diagnostics, that's a systematic approach. You know, I would challenge you, next time one of your vendors is in, just ask them, say, how do you provide me with a systematic approach to resolving these issues? I bet they'll be excited to tell you all about it. And then how can you get the most benefit from your provider? You know, what are those things that you could be doing? You know, we all have a part in this. You know, we as the vendors, you know, we need to make sure we've got skilled resources and tools and, you know, the latest make sure we're taking advantage of the latest technology. But what could you be doing to help with that? Be proactive. In other words, ask those questions. You know, take down notes. Systematic approach. What are you doing for me? You know, ask them questions. I'm sure if you called them up today and said, what are your options to help me maintaining the system, they would be very glad to talk to you and help you with that. And then just take advantage of those proactive services. You know, a lot of times I get a lot of pushback from customers. You know, how are these really going to help me? I've never had these before. We've been running. Just take advantage of them. Most of the time they will maybe offer you a pilot. Maybe they'll look at part of your system so that you can see what these look like. And then the next one is, everybody has online websites nowadays. They've got abilities to do automatic pushes of emails, all those things. Are you signed up for those? If you're not, you really should be. A lot of things like cybersecurity nowadays, vendors are having to make sure that they stay up to date with Microsoft's latest releases of cybersecurity patches, those kind of things. they're probably already emailing you that, or emailing you, or emailing other customers about that stuff. They already have those things in place. And customers will continue to take advantage of those kind of things. I know that I can speak to ABB, and we even have an app for our online resources where you can put it on your iPhone or your smartphone and be able to, if you're getting error code 472, go look that up quickly. They've got those things for you that are probably part of your service contract. You should be taking advantage of those things. And then if none of these things work, or that you're really struggling to find where their online resources are or what the proactive services are, they all have people like me at their companies that their job in life, or their reason for being, is to work with you to figure out what makes the most sense for you. What could you take advantage of? Do a needs analysis at your site. Come in and talk to you. So, we're all there. And like I said, all these will be at Automation and PowerWorld for those ABB customers, and I'll be there on the demo floor in the services booth. So come by and ask. Maybe we can start that discussion. And so what I'm going to do now is just kind of see what questions you guys have come up with for me. Let's see if I've got any challenging ones. How secure are the remote connections? I get that question a lot. Of course, I'll just say very. No. We're taking advantage of, I can speak to ABB, we're taking advantage of the ability to provide a secure socket layer VPN connection that is actually initiated from within the customer site to ABB. It's actually on your site. You can actually control it. It's not something where we're arbitrarily logging in and you're enabling us to just get in whenever we want. It's secure from the standpoint of the technology. Everything that goes across the wire, so to speak, is encrypted, but we've also got different policies and procedures in place that we identify. Only certain people at sites are allowed to authorize us to log in, and we've also got a log of every time somebody does log in, what they're doing on the site, who it was, so that if there's ever a question as to what went on, we can provide that for you. Another one, what systems are the tools you described available for? I can speak to ABB again. The tools that I was talking to, we've overcome our challenge of being able to provide them on all of our systems, including legacy. There's on the ABB side, that is, there's very few systems out there that don't have some kind of tool. And then at the end of the day, so long as you have a Windows machine of some kind, the remote access will be able to be provided, and at that point, if it's a very old system, an interface of some kind could be provided. Here's another one. What is the investment to get access to the tools you described? The investment, again, the ABB side, the investment can go anywhere from very small, maybe $3,000 in your service contract, all the way up. Just depends on how big and large the system is. Yeah, I mean, it's a very, I hate to give that kind of an answer, but it's a very wide range. It can be very small to very large. How fast can we get access to the tools? The remote diagnostics, we've got that down to a very quick installation if you need it. And the reason for that is because we find that when customers really need us to do it, they don't always have a contract already. And we do have an ability to install it quickly so that if you are having a problem, we can utilize it. But, I mean, that can happen within a day. Most of the time, these are offered as part of your service contract. So as soon as that is signed and those things are available, we can get it scheduled pretty quickly. Let's see, how do I initiate a needs analysis? Well, for any of the tools I talked about today, you can contact me, jennifer.love@us.abb.com. I think they're also going to send out some information on how to contact me or how to contact us. It's that easy. Just ask next time any of your vendor representatives come out that you need one of these, and I'm sure they'll be able to turn it around pretty quickly for you. And that looks like all my questions for today. So with that, I think I'm going to turn it back over to Monica. And I look forward to seeing all of you at APW this year.
Thank you, Jennifer. That was a great presentation. Great answers to the questions. I'd like to close today with some additional information about our Automation and Power World Conference in Orlando, Florida, March 25th through the 28th. The content you heard today is an example of the training sessions that will be offered at the conference. Here are some statistics regarding the powerful events that we are assembling. We have a number of different registration options. You can register for all 3 days or for select days at some very reasonable rates. There is also a free one-day courtesy registration especially designed for spouses and special guests. And those you would like to attend just the Technology and Solutions Center. Here's some 10 reasons that you should attend this event. If you don't want to miss it, one other reason not to attend. One other reason we don't have listed here is that Orlando is a beautiful place to be in March. If you'd like to register or obtain additional information about the event, here's the URL, www.abb.com/apworld. At this URL, you'll also find a list of other free webinars like this one that will be available during the rest of this month. We look forward to seeing you at the conference in March. Thank you.